the Parks and Public Works Committee to order. Why don't we start with roll call? Are we all noted? Everybody's here? Yeah. Okay. Roll call done. Everybody cool with the agenda? Was there anything that we need to change on that? You're good, Mr. Holloway? You're good? Okay. All right. We'll take the agenda as written, and that opens it up to public comments. Is there anybody who would like to make public comment at the meeting here in person or online? Is anybody online?
Oh, that dropped off.
Okay. Didn't mean to scare you off. All right. Let's move on to the approval of the minutes dated March 5th, 2024. Did anybody see any problem with the minutes? Anything that needs to be added, subtracted, multiplied, or divided? No?
I would move to approve the minutes dated March 5th.
Bold motions. Was that a quiet second?
That's a quiet second.
Okay. All right. Okay. Then the meeting, the minutes are approved. Agenda bills. First one on here is AB 24-039, Snoqualmie Valley Mobility Coalition draft resolution and presentation.
Good evening, council members. Emily Arteche, Community Development Director. Tonight we have the Snoqualmie Valley Mobility Coalition here to present the 2024 Mobility Awareness Resolution. The small presentation. We've got Tracy Jones. She's the Executive Director, right? Mobility Coalition Director. So I'm going to go back to my desk or back to my seat and bring up her presentation and click through it. So there might just be a slight delay in getting it going.
We will miss you.
Okay.
Can you tell us again who you are?
Hi, I'm Tracy Jones. I am the Snoqualmie Valley Mobility Coalition Coordinator, and I work under the umbrella of HopeLink. And what we do is we work to further mobility throughout the valley. And we do that through education, advocacy, and lots of conversation. And it's just getting to know the public, different officials, nonprofits, agencies throughout the valley, so we can all work together to have a coordinated vision and raise our voice as loud as we can to get more support in the valley.
And if you don't mind, just to set the stage, can you tell us what some of the biggest mobility challenges are that you guys deal with?
The biggest mobility challenges that we deal with, that is an excellent question. And we deal with these on a daily basis. I hear from, we do a lot of public outreach, and the most I hear from people is, I just can't access services. I don't have a car. There are no bus services, transportation services where I live, near where I live. And so I'm unable to blank, blank, blank. Go to the hospital, make appointments, drop my kids off for childcare. That is probably the biggest. But then we also have a very large unhoused population. The two biggest groups growing are seniors and veterans. And they're just struggling to make ends meet. And one of the things they drop is paying for gas, paying for insurance. And they are really just struggling to keep up with basic services. So any money they have goes to food, medicines. And those people are right now at the senior centers just trying to find ways to get to treatments and get to doctors' offices. The other population we hear from are young families with kids who are in activities, kids that need to go to daycare, kids that are needing extra tutoring. There is really no Valley service that is consistent, reliable, that coordinates these types of trips for people. And as we know, the Valley is a transportation desert, and truly the only services that Metro provides are from Duval to Redmond, and that is at the furthest point in Duval to Redmond. And then we have North Bend to Snoqualmie to Issaquah. They are going to open up the 215, which will be with North Bend to Snoqualmie, sometimes stopping at Preston and then to Issaquah, but then that same bus will continue to Mercer Island.
So 215 is the bus number.
It's the bus number and it's hopefully coming in September. Metro provides all their service updates in March and September, right around the 30th of the month. And, you know, we're slated. However, they keep saying that we will be on their service plan, which we are not currently on their service plan. And the service plan is Metro's proposed service updates, changes, and priorities. Unfortunately, the Valley is not listed on their service plans right at this moment. And they're telling us from an official at Metro, give us 2 years. It'll be a snap of the finger, and in 2 years, we'll be able to provide more services. That was a year ago. And, you know, I just think with the way the light rail is going and the backups, the hiccups, we're just last on the list right now.
Okay. Well, I'm sorry, I sidetracked you. I know you had a presentation planned, but thank you for setting the stage.
Interesting to note, 250, it's the bus route.
Bus route is a
The
215.
215 bus route was available a number of years ago. Did North Bend, Snoqualmie, Issaquah, downtown Seattle,
Mhm.
and they took it away. So I'm not really, I share your pessimism on 2 years.
I'm trying to be optimistic. Well, they're trying to hit Mercer Island because of the eventual light rail. And they're trying to reduce some of their routes right now. If you see their service plans and a few of the changes, they're directed toward upcoming light rail, they're test runs. And the 215 will be a test run. They're going to call it a route, but you know, we have to provide the metrics that prove we need more. And that's the challenge.
Okay.
I hope that helps.
Mhm.
Okay. Would you please press the slide? Thank you. So again, I'm Tracy Jones with the Snoqualmie Valley Mobility Coalition. And I'm here to talk about integrating mobility management in the resolution that Emily has presented you. Okay, and I think the first question I get a lot is, what is mobility management? And mobility management is simply connecting people to appropriate mobility opportunities. And people come in all different shapes, sizes, abilities. As we can see here on the slide, no two people are the same. And so what opportunities might look like to you might be completely different to someone else. And what are these opportunities? Well, since they're varied, they're also varied with where people need to go. And that is the second part of the equation that is equally as important. To access your community means to be able to get around independently and freely in order to become a successful individual. And, you know, mobility management collaborates with various sectors through leveraging partnerships to enhance comprehensive regional transportation and promote creative, flexible, and adaptable solutions. By exploring different modes of transit, mobility management additionally strives to improve access and services through advocacy for underserved and vulnerable populations. Many of those populations that can't really speak up for themselves or don't know how to speak up for themselves. That's why we are here. And next, who am I? Well, again, I'm Tracy Jones with the Snoqualmie Valley Mobility Coalition. And what do? The Mobility Coalition, established in 2017, is committed to advancing rural mobility-focused policies and projects through partnerships and innovative transportation solutions. SVMC aims to ensure public mobility options are accessible, affordable, convenient, coordinated, reliable, and safe, covering all transit modes as part of our 5-year transportation plan and initiative. And SVMC promotes equitable transportation across rural King County by actively educating the community, identifying critical gaps and needs, and primarily focusing on those disproportionately impacted by disability, geography, and limited resources. This progress was illustrated by the launch of the Duval-Monroe Shuttle, which aimed to provide immediate access for the community. And the Duval-Monroe Shuttle was canceled due to the pandemic, and we are very hopeful it will resume within the next couple of weeks, but I'm just going to say the next month. But everything is proposed. They have the drivers, and SVT is committed to getting that back as soon as possible. And then SVMC's membership includes transit providers, human service agencies, nonprofits, senior centers, city planners, libraries, administrators, elected officials, advocates, and residents of Carnation, Duval, Falls City, North Bend, Snoqualmie, and more. And pretty much what that says, we're a collective group that really works hard to get people to where they need to be. And we're very committed to incorporating everyone who has a voice and would like to share their voice, to working together collaboratively. And collaboration is the key to any coalition. And so why am I here? Well, we have a resolution which is in front of you, and the resolution proposed requests all cities within the valley to prioritize improving mobility and accessibility to equitably enhance regional transportation services through unified mobility-focused initiatives, policies, planning, and development. And what that means is when you work in building your comprehensive plans, your future goals, these types of mobility-focused requests, we would like you to integrate those. And truly mobility is anyone, anywhere, using any type of assistance or their feet or a bike, but then being mindful of sidewalks, crosswalks, having kids be able to go freely to school. So many different things to so many different people. It's not just car centric. And about 1/3 of your population does not drive. And so how do you accommodate that other 1/3? And the ages vary, the reasons vary. Some are not of age, but they still need to get where they need to be. And that's why we look at mobility and try to focus on everyone and then your plans as a whole. And then we acknowledge our distinctive rural setting is crucial to underscore the importance of comprehensive and supportive mobility and mobility management principles inherently further inclusivity that properly reflect the city of Snoqualmie's diverse population, geography, and needs. One more slide. Emily, thank you. And first of all, thank you for considering supporting SVMC and joining the call to prioritize mobility management principles and values throughout the city of Snoqualmie's forward-thinking vision. And I will say you guys are the most progressive city in the valley. So thank you very much for making those changes from the beginning of the comprehensive planning to where we are today. I keep track of all of them, and you guys have truly led the way in the valley. So thank you for honoring mobility practices in looking out for everyone. And the resolution highlights the city of Snoqualmie's commitment to fostering community-oriented development by foreseeing a more accessible city, focusing on connectivity, inclusivity, and sustainability due to the lack of countywide resources highlighted by the elevated need and serious concerns in addressing rural transportation. Improving mobility equity is crucial for growing the overall health of the Puget Sound region, linking people to economic opportunities, jobs, tourism, education, medical services, and nutrition, among others. And this interconnectivity fosters economic prosperity, leading to a more vibrant and sustainable community where everyone can grow, thrive, and contribute to our society. So thank you for having me. I hope that you have gained something from this. And, next time you're out and walking or just, sitting around looking at the streets, just take a look and, think about all the different accessibility needs that are just right in front of you at that moment in time. It'll never be the same from time and time again. So thank you for the consideration. Any questions?
Questions?
Mm.
You have a questiony face on.
Hey, so what does this mean to the city? Other than, we join for you when our goals align to go talk to the county to say, hey, there needs to be more services, needs to be these kind of things here. You say prioritize mobility, but you don't say prioritize against what? And we do prioritize, but I'm not gonna prioritize it above public safety,
Mhm.
above basic services. So how are you looking for the city's behavior to change? Because part of my counter is, as you said, we're already doing some of that.
You are, and it's a great start. But I think too, by asking all the cities, we need to unify. We need to have some sort of coordinated response to Metro. And this is not something that is in the short term. We've asked all the cities to adopt some version of what you have received. And the city of Carnation has already adopted it. We're also working with Duval and North Bend. And by doing so, we would like to present a united front with Metro, but also in our coalition. We talk to Metro all the time. We have Metro come sit in our meetings, and we would like to say, hey, we're all on the same page. And what does this mean for you? This means that Snoqualmie has agreed to say our mobility, the mobility of our citizens matters. And that also means bus service. That also means buses that are wheelchair accessible. That also means signs that people can see. It's not just driving a car. It's all the things that go in that we need to be more aware, but also scream to Metro and just say, we need our voices heard. We all need to come together. But then, hey, Metro, what can we do? What can we bring forward to show you one metrics? That's their biggest argument, is the metrics. They're not there. And by doing so, the metrics are not there in that we do not provide the numbers.
No, but they have ridership numbers.
They have ridership numbers. Yes, they do. Yes, they do. But they say our ridership numbers are lower than what would be needed in order to bring more transportation to the valley. You have large developments coming in, and it would be
Ridden that
nice-
bus in the morning, but all right.
Huh?
I have ridden that bus in the morning in the past.
That's
Yeah,
I come forward in peace as a messenger. But it's amazing. And if you look at all the developments, North Bend has a huge development on the other side of the highway. There's no bus plan for, those you guys have the Ridge. There's no real service that goes into the Ridge. There are so many upcoming projects. Monroe has a large hotel. They're looking to kind of recreate a convention center up there. There's no service, and they're not on the plans. So how do we get on the plans? Well, first of all, start by saying, hey, we're all together with this. We're all on the same page, and we're here to raise our voices as loud as we can to get some sort of service. That answer the question somewhat?
it partially, it does the focus up, it doesn't do the focus down, because it's also gonna be interpreted as ADA ramps on every curb.
Well, I don't think it's
Which-
feasible.
Over time,
Mhm.
that's the time issue
Mhm.
comes into effect. And again, becomes the balance of, how do I prioritize that against, street maintenance, other thing, street maintenance, basic road services, services for, as we were talking last night, for transportation. I've gotta, maintain, there are intersections which will eventually need to be changed as city grows. And when we do the changes, they will be compliant. But again, it's a time element. It will take time for those things to come to effect, for those intersections to change. And some intersections are, off the beaten path and may not get attention for some time. So how do I avoid, when I just say prioritize, somebody telling me you're not prioritizing because you do not have a plan to make every corner ADA compliant
Mhm.
within some time period. And somebody may correct me, I think we actually have a plan, that has some
Quite a
time
plan.
period on it, but
We've been
it
working.
may not be satisfactory to all people and it never will be. So, okay.
I would argue that we are doing really well
Oh,
with
yeah.
ADA compliant. I mean, we're bordering on 98 compliance, I think. So, you know, it's,
Measure, but yeah.
yeah.
I think too, you have a 10-year plan and you just add these elements as something to where it just shows people that this is a concern, this is a priority. And will everything be finished like that? No. You have a long-range plan. And in that long-range plan, of course, there are priorities. Of course, there are deal breakers. And then there are the ones that absolutely have to be there. And you work through the 10-year plan to show, yes, mobility is a part of this.
Councilperson Watton,
Yeah,
Mutton, Cotton, Flutton, shit,
Thank
someone,
you.
one of them.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the information.
Yeah.
You over
Yeah,
there.
you, that one. It's like talking to my kids.
They all named
We're good?
you, mine are.
Thank you very much. All right, are we all done? Is there more? Or are we moving right on to reclamation?
Oh, we can move right on to reclamation. Just wanted to make you aware that this is an agenda bill scheduled
Next week.
for, yeah, the city council next week as a resolution. And just to compliment you again on all the work that you're doing through your round table meetings on all of the elements, most recently, obviously, transportation, where we spend a significant amount of time talking about mobility, probably more so than the other elements. So this topic is very timely.
Well, thank you. These guys help too.
Is the intent in council to go through this presentation again, or?
No, no, there was no additional presentation, but happy to inquire if Ms. Jones is available, if you'd like to see the presentation again on Monday.
No, the underlying question is it consent or is it on the regular agenda?
It could be on consent, maybe during the discussion you'll have after this meeting at FNA.
Okay, I just.
Yeah.
if
I
it
think
go-
we get to decide if
You
it's on
get, you get
consent,
to
right?
make recommendations.
Or actually, is
consent
this
or
being
not.
presented to a bunch of different committees or?
No.
Okay, all right.
This is your committee meeting, and if you'd like to consider it for consent, it might be nice. If you'd like to have the presentation again, we could do that as well.
I split the middle. I'm not sure it should be on consent, but there should be mention of what it is and why. And that's probably a non-consent item that we can handle it ourselves, but
Should we put it on consent and then pull it off?
why?
Right? It's just so that you know.
So you do it?
I
Really
think
wanna
it
pull something up?
I think it accomplishes what you're talking about. I think putting it on consent accomplishes that you don't have to schedule the presentation
Oh,
and you pull it off and discuss it.
having it not on consent doesn't mean we need the presentation. It just means there's at least visibility that we are in some way going to prioritize mobility in the comp plan and other activities. That's a good thing to have visibility on. I don't want to hide it on consent is my issue.
Fair enough,
So
fair enough.
I would leave it on.
Non-consent, you cool with that?
I am cool with that.
Okay,
Okay.
all right. So non-consent.
And no presentation.
Yeah, I
We'll,
think,
we'll give our blessing to it.
Yeah.
Everybody else.
well, I think your point is really good. And I think it's one of the points that the presentation made is that Snoqualmie's doing this. And I, you know, I was having the same kinds of questions when I was reading through the resolution myself. What are we committing to? Because I don't want to get into a situation where we're going to get dinged because somebody felt like we should have prioritized this aspect more than another, or because we didn't prioritize one thing or prioritize one thing over another, then we're not in compliance with this resolution that we wrote. So I think your point is
But I'm
valid.
willing to join voices as appropriate.
Totally.
Resolution is basically supporting, the advancement of this campaign, this initiative, providing inclusive, safe mobility options for all. So, and it, the work that you're doing right now on the transportation element reflects this. So it's quite timely.
Yeah, I mean,
Well, and Patrick's helping too. So, yeah.
I
Haven't seen a sidewalk you wouldn't grind.
I would love a bike lift on Snoqualmie Parkway going up. But when am I gonna prioritize it over other things? No, it's just a personal thing for me.
Going up, if we had like a conveyor belt.
There are bike lifts.
Yeah, yeah.
And you look at the Netherlands or whatever, they have things like that. But
All right, I feel like we're getting a hint that we should move on
That-
to
that's it,
Agenda
right?
Bill 24-034 Water Reclamation Facility Effluent Mixing Zone Study. This was an interesting one.
This was,
It's a unique one. Yeah, no, this is relates to the water reclamation facility. This is more of an NPDS, water reclamation facility NPDS requirement. It's not phase 3 related construction project. So I just wanted to clarify that. So as part of our NPDS permit, we're required to complete an effluent mixing zone study prior to July 31st of this year that will model the effluent at our outfall in the Snoqualmie River from the water reclamation facility. And the model will have the most current river data, the most current wastewater flows, and will consider the more stringent nutrient removal requirements that are coming up for the Snoqualmie River.
So I'm going to interrupt you just real quick. When I was reading through this, and a lot of it was just gobbledygook to me, I'll be honest. But my understanding was that the water we put back in the river is already cleaner than the river.
That's a broad question. I think there's different parameters that we look at. They have to sample for metals, ammonia, and generally it probably is cleaner than the river. But we still have those limits that are set. So it's not a constant number that comes out the pipe. It's always fluctuating. So those limits actually change each permit cycle, and they look at conditions such as the flows that come into the plant and the river levels and how it all mixes, and they change those numbers each permit cycle.
And okay, so just if you can think of an example, I quickly answer this question. Otherwise, say, "Shut up, Ethan. I got a presentation." What is something that would cause those numbers to spike in a way that would be non-compliant?
I mean, there's a broad range. You could have a change in the conditions of our community. There could be an industrial site that dumped something accidentally. There could be higher rain flows. There could be very low river flows.
So if there's not as
There
much
could be-
water in the river, then whatever is effluent from our reclamation plant is going to be a larger percentage of the water that's going into the river that's going to affect those numbers.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yes. So that's a great point. So this model takes into account the low river flows. It's the most conservative, most stringent scenario. So we're looking at August, September, October when the river's the lowest. That's when we model the effluent at the outfall because the river is most sensitive, and that's what ecology requires.
Does our effluent outflow reduce by a comparable percentage when the level of the river reduces?
Yes, it does somewhat.
well, it reduces
Yeah.
based on usage, correct? Whatever comes through the wastewater system, you have to treat, and then you have the solid waste and you have the effluent that goes out.
Generally,
And
yes, yeah.
So Super Bowl Sunday, you get a surge at halftime.
People
And you gotta
poop
do something.
every day.
That's piece, but water,
Are you talking about like the I Love Lucy effect kind of thing, or
no, water usage has somewhat seasonal, but a lot of that is driven by irrigation. And so I may be making an incorrect assumption that wastewater fluctuates seasonally too, but you guys know the metrics you would have to tell us.
You're totally right. I mean, there's a we call it diurnal. Everyone flushes their toilets, takes showers in the morning. So 9 a.m., 10 a.m., 11 a.m., that's when you have a really big peak. But there is also a seasonal fluctuation. We do have something called inflow and infiltration. Every facility has it. So in January, if there's a huge flood rainstorm, there's actually a lot of water that flows into those manhole lids that you see in the road, and that causes your flows to go up. But you know, comparing two dry weather seasons, July and August, you know, there's not a huge fluctuation.
And kids don't bathe in the summer so much, so.
You swim in the river.
It could be.
Right.
But those are great assumptions they consider in this mixing zone study, and we'll be looking at that. One thing we're doing is we're not modeling, you know, those peak flows in January that we see because we're not going to get those flows in August, September when the river is lowest. We should be modeling what we're going to see in the dry season months. So we're taking the average between June and October into consideration in our model. We selected 5 different engineering firms from the city consultant roster, and there's not a ton of consultants that do mixing zone studies in Western Washington. But we ultimately selected Kennedy Jenks as the most qualified consultant and negotiated scope and fee with them. So we're recommending a contract for $73,965 with Kennedy Jenks to complete this work. It will be funded from the wastewater utility operations fund. And again, this is a requirement in our NPDS permit. We need to complete the report prior to the 31st of July.
Okay.
So if the existing permit goes out to I think July 2026, how come this analysis so far ahead from when our existing permit ends?
And there are other steps.
Yeah, that's what Ecology put in their, they have a list of requirements and what the deadlines are that I guess that gives them some time to
Years?
consider the information before the next permit application. So we'll probably apply a year prior to the expiration of this permit. So,
Okay.
yes.
My question is, in reading through the contract and, even, is it parametrics stuff? The references they use for their data are like from studies that have been done like in the early 90s was the latest ones. And so when the Cormex software is used to do the analytics, because my understanding is that there's not going to be any sampling done. It's all strictly going to be computer stuff, that they're using the data from these early 90s studies. Does ecology not require anything more recent or current for those types of things?
That's a really great question. One reason a lot of the previous permits have relied on those older reports.
Yeah.
That's one reason that we're doing this mixing zone study, is that we don't have a current mixing zone study for the city. So that's probably why that requirement got put into our permit. We do have current data that we're going to use in the model.
Okay.
We have bathymetric river data from the Snoqualmie Falls. PSE's provided that. You know, there's very current annual river data. So
Okay.
we'll have river flows. I think some of the published outfall mixing zone, basically the last time they did mixing zone models was pretty far back. So that's why that plan was referencing older documents, but this new report will replace some of those.
Okay, that's what I was wondering.
Did you have another question?
Go
So this is a question similar to what I was asking about when we were talking about the reservoir for treatment. Is there any history of violations by Snoqualmie of our treated water being insufficiently treated?
General, I mean, we just received an award for outstanding wastewater treatment facility.
I think you guys are doing a bang up job.
Operations, we have a really great operations team. They showed that by getting the award. I see Mike raising his hand, but I would just say that regionally, they are making more stringent standards we're raising our standards for water quality on the Puget Sound, on rivers, nutrient removals coming down the pipeline. So that, this ties into that, but Mike,
There was a new test added this year that got missed, so we are in violation for this year.
What is that test?
I
It
don't,
was some E. coli test, E. coli testing. It's a new requirement for the plant. It has not, they're collecting data right now, so it's not a metric. We missed it by 3 weeks because it was buried in one of the requirements in the permit and we didn't catch it. We did get notification today that we're getting a warning letter, but that's it. So we didn't get a violation.
Okay.
So we're actually okay.
Well, I mean, are they just going to continue to up this until you can have nothing but hydrogen and oxygen going into the river or?
yeah,
Well, they
Then we
are.
can use it for the sprinklers.
They are continuing to increase the demands on water treatment. And it's due to several things, but a lot of it is the condition of the sound and the condition of the rivers, and more people moving to the area. And so there is more load. And so in order for the rivers to handle and assimilate the increased load, we have to provide ever increasing levels of treatment for certain things.
At what point are we putting in water that's so clean, it's actually bad for the river?
you can get there, actually.
Yeah, I mean, it seems to me, that, for a river, nature, it shouldn't be, distilled water for laboratory use. That's the only thing going into it. Andrew, I count on you for these answers.
It's more about temperature and oxygen levels. If your processes raise the temperature of the water to a high level and they remove the oxygen out of the water, you can wind up, in fact, that's exactly what part of the study is determined, to find out if you have a dead zone where it's going into the river because there's no oxygen, because it's just no oxygen water going in there. And that would be bad for the river.
Yeah.
I am not concerned about that though, because we have a great mixer 100 feet down from our pipe.
And that's the sole job of that thing is to add oxygen to the water, right?
It's the waterfall.
Yeah, it's the whole reason it's there, right? But they're saying that there could be a dead zone between there and the falls.
yeah,
I don't think there is,
the
but
mixing zone produces these dilution factors, and those look at a number of parameters: oxygen, temperature, metals. Metals comes up a lot on this. So if
Where are those metals coming from?
streets.
yeah, it could be streets, it could be
Industrial
different pipes. Drinking water pipes are made out of ductile iron, so metal can wick off of that. And the mixing zone, if the results are not favorable, if it shows that we need to have changes, the changes would likely be putting improved diffusion on our outfall. So right now we have a big 36-inch diameter outfall in the river, and oftentimes these mixing zone studies result in some additional testing or improvements to the outfall. And that would be, future planning projects.
Anything else?
That's it for me.
Okay,
He wants to get out of here.
all right, thank you.
Thank you, Andrew.
I'd like to talk about solid waste. What about you guys?
Do you want that on consent or general agenda?
It seems like a consent item to me. What do you think? $73,000, if I'm remembering the numbers right. And there was, that is something that we didn't talk about. There was discussion in the agenda bill that there is the potential that we're going to run out of money in that fund.
That's the only reason I would say non-consent.
Okay, all right. What do you think? You good with non-consent? Councilmember Cotton? Got it right the first time that time.
You
right.
had to do it twice though.
Okay, non-consent. All right. All right, and let's see, Patrick, you brought us solid waste.
Yeah, I know Jeff actually has a pretty long presentation or at least discussion item after this, so just a gentle reminder that any comments, questions, concerns with the solid waste contract, it's due next week. We're gonna have the discussion during council, next Monday. Anything before, if you have any questions or, clarifying questions that you.
Yes.
Well,
What does non-putrescible mean?
I have no idea.
Okay. All right.
I'll get back to you.
Okay.
Yeah, just if you want any clarification, send me an email or give me a call. If it's a discussion item, feel free to just send it to me and then I'll just add it to the list. But really, that's about it. I'll let Jeff take over.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. It means
Waste
it
that
won't-
does not contain organic matter.
Waste that does not contain, okay, because
organic
it can't become putrid,
it can't
Correct. Okay.
putrefy, yeah.
can't putrefy. Okay. All right. All right, number 5, dissolution of East King County Regional Water Association discussion.
Does this have to do with water rights of pulling water out of the river?
It does.
Not the river.
It does actually does involve pulling water out of the river.
Sorry,
All right, so
that was a different river.
hang on to your hats, guys.
Here we go.
So I'm going to dive into some technical aspects of water law here a little bit, but this leads to a conclusion and recommendations. And I'm going to try to get there as quickly as possible. Anybody here ever heard of the East King County Regional Water Association? No?
No.
I thought you.
Only by reputation. Yeah.
Right. So the East King County Regional Water Association is no more. The demise of the Water Association is what I'm here to talk about in the dissolution. Snoqualmie, City of Snoqualmie is a partner in the East King County Regional Water Association. They have recently determined that there's no value in this application, which we are a joint partner in with SPU. And so the organization has decided to dissolve. Now, there is an opportunity for those remaining members in this organization who want to continue on with SPU in pursuit of this water right application. And so I'm going to take you through that a little bit and show you what our recommendations are in the end. So what I'm going to talk to you about.
But SPU, Seattle Pacific
Seattle.
University?
Next, sorry. City of Seattle, Seattle Public Utilities.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so I'm gonna talk about first the project and then give you some background on it. The previous partnership between the city of Seattle, SPU and ECRA. The recent SPU efforts towards this Snoqualmie Aquifer Water Rights application. The SPU partnership expectations and our considerations and recommendations that I had discussed. So I'm gonna move through these quickly. So ECRA partnership was originally formed between 17 entities. These are various cities and water purveyors to join with SPU on the Snoqualmie Aquifer Rights, Water Rights application. There were 2 water right applications filed in the early 1990s, a groundwater application and a surface water application. That's because it's a pump and dump scheme, which I'm going to talk about a little bit more later. The applications sat dormant until 2019, and that was due to the fact that they had a low viability. They didn't think there was really a lot of SPU had higher, better prospects out there for water rights. There was this issue with water rights. Anybody could file a water right application, and the idea was get it on the books, and we're grandfathered in. We get seniority over other people who come in later. This was a lot of it in the 90s, especially. People were seeing that there was a limit to how many water rights were available in any given basin. So everybody was scrambling to try to get water right applications in. They didn't have to do anything. They didn't have to pay anything. They just submit their application. It just sat there. So they literally had thousands of water right applications on file at the Department of Ecology. So they, in 2019, Department of Ecology sent out letters to everybody, and this is a statement of intent letters, which said basically, if you're not doing anything with these water right applications, if you don't do something to advance it, we're just gonna cancel it. Right? And which made sense, because like I said, they
Very
had
little
thousands of
of it.
applications just sitting and nobody was doing anything with them. Just holding a place in line essentially. So SPU initiated some planning activities for this project. And they demanded a cost share from ECRA, this East King County Regional Water Association. ECRA looked at the project and determined that it had, it's not likely viable, and continued interest in this application really had no value. So they decided to dissolve the organization. I'll talk a little bit more about why it has no value, because I looked at it pretty hard to determine if we should stay in on this. And we still can if we want to, but I'm going to explain to you why maybe we should. So the former ECRA members must decide by April 30th if they wish to continue with this new ECRA partnership, which currently there's only 4 former ECRA members. Out of that 17, there's only 4 left that are considering staying in. And that's the City of Kirkland, Sammamish Plateau, North Bend, and us. Okay. So let's talk about the project. The concept is, as you can see right here on the left. Can you see my cursor? Yeah, you can. Okay. So over here, this is Snoqualmie right here. And this is North Bend right here. See these little black dots? Those are well points. That is what this project is proposing to do. Up to 12 or 13 well points. They're going to pump somewhere between 6 and 20 million gallons of water a day out of our aquifer and pump it into the river. So pump it and dump it into the river. It flows down the river and they will pull it out down here in Carnation. This is Carnation Farm right here. And so Duval's right up here. This is a toll pipeline that comes across here. So they want to build a treatment plant here, divert water from the river, treat it, and then put it into their pipeline. And, the concept here is that if they can do this during the winter time when there's no flow restrictions on the river, they can hold water back in the Tolt reservoir and use that for summer consumption. Right. So that's why they're keeping this thing alive. The chances of it being successful are pretty low. I'm going to talk about that a little bit more here. But let's talk about how much water we're talking about. So like I said, the supply, previous modeling efforts from 2000 suggest that there's between 6 million to 20 million gallons a day that are available. That total amount would be split by a 50-50 split between SPU and ECRA. All costs to date have been shared at approximately 50-50. The design and construction cost estimate from the SPU 2007 water system plan analysis suggested that if this thing gets developed in 2040, due to inflation and escalation, $268 million to develop this project. So we have essentially a quarter share of a half share. So we have a pretty small share in all of this, but that still equates to a considerable amount of money. So as SPU's recent activities in trying to advance this water rights, they have several water right applications in, and they've chosen 7 of those things to study further. This is probably one of the lowest priorities of all of these 7 projects that they're looking into. They hired an engineering firm to do the analysis. The total cost for that analysis is $2.5 million. They think that this share of this, if you just take the 2.5 million divided by 7 projects, right? And then, the 50% share of that, it's about $180,000. If we're a quarter share of that, then we'd be in for $45,000 initially. That's just to get this first study out of the way, and they're really checking on the viability.
Why am I remembering that number? Actually, the number I'm remembering is 190,000 from like a year or so ago, where a project like this was brought forth to our council and we were asked, do we want in? And we said, absolutely. Am I remembering something unrelated?
Yeah, it's unrelated to this. This is something that's been pie in the sky for a lot of years, and now we're forced to make a decision on it. So, that's where I'm leading us. I'm gonna take you to where we're going with this. Initially, we need $45,000 if we want to stay in to maintain our share of this water right application. So it's just an application at this point. It's not even a water right. It's an application to actually try to apply for a water right and get this water right. The chances of us getting that water right, of SPU or this whole organization being successful in attaining this water right are, I think, not viable. I'm going to explain that here in a little bit, but I want to continue on with this. So SPU has laid out, we met with them recently and they laid out their expectations. Since, they're the big kid in the room and they're driving this thing. They told us the initial application, the intent of the initial application was that the water that was gained from this project, this water right, would go into their regional supply system. And that is how it would be supplied. So for us to gain access to it, we would have to somehow build a pipe that connects to their system. The nearest point of connection is in Carnation. Right? So that led me to wonder, all right, there's got to be another way, because you can amend a water rights application, right, without losing your place in line. SPU is unwilling to do that. We could come up with maybe some mitigation scheme, but here's the other downside of that. This is subject to the in-stream flow rule. And so this is where it gets technical. So there is, starting in 1979, Department of Ecology implemented this thing called the resource, I got it written down here. It's the in-stream resource protection program. And what they found, what they were discovering back even in the 70s was that there is only so much water in the river. There's already a lot of people who have water rights. When people upstream are taking more water than they should, it starts to impact the people downriver, and those people already have a water right. So what they have decided is that there has to be a minimum amount of flow in the river. This protects the downstream water users, and it also protects the in-stream users, meaning the fish, the bugs, and the river itself, the health of the river itself. So there is a minimum flow amount that has to be in the river. So no new water rights which after 1979, which come about in the Snoqualmie Valley system, can pull water out of the river or from an aquifer which discharges or is connected to the river hydraulically during times when the river level is below a certain level. That is pretty much all summer. So if we were to try to pursue some mitigation strategy, meaning we would pull it out of our own, we would transfer a water right to our own well system, we pull it out. We could only do that during times of the year when we don't need it.
During the winter.
Right. So it's an interruptible water right.
So this is what I'm remembering when you were saying that we could take water from the spring to refill the aquifer during the rainy season.
That's the ASR project. That's one of the considerations.
That's a separate thing.
It is separate, except that it would kind of, I think, be a threat. It'd be a problem for us to consider that we're pumping down we're taking all this water from our spring and putting it down in the aquifer just so SPU can pull it out and dump it in the river.
Dump it in the river and
Right.
pull it out later downstream.
Right. So we would need to have remedies by contract built in prior to this so that they don't impact us. We were already senior. Our water right is senior to this water right, so they can't impact us. But that happens all the time. That's what water law does, right? People fight over water, right? And so this project is really a threat to our water system because they're pulling out of the exact same aquifer that we do, right? So do you have a question?
Well, finish your train of thought.
Oh, well,
So what are we gonna do?
yeah, exactly. So what do? So let me keep going through here so I can get you all this information. So the SPU expects a continued 50-50 cost share between SPU and ECRA, the new ECRA, the 4-member ECRA. So all of the development costs would be split between us and SPU. That's a huge impact on us. Like I said, it's at least $33 million. That is our quarter share of a half share to develop that water right. And that doesn't include the pipe. That pipe, you consider $500 a foot, which is about the rate that costs for 10 miles. You're looking at another 30 million bucks, probably a pump station or two on the way, probably $40 million to develop that water, to get an uninterrupted water source from SPU. So, for that reason alone, I don't know if it's a lift that we could even make. And for, essentially a quarter share of a half share, it's not, that's paying a high price for water.
Yeah.
Just real quick, if they can only take the water from our aquifers, or points around the valley, during the winter months and pump it back into the river. This is also our flood season. Is that enough water, or 6 to 20 million gallons per day? Is that enough to affect like river levels?
No.
Okay.
No, so if you look at what goes over the falls, our base flow, I think our base flow is between 2,000 and 2,500 cubic feet per second. 20 million gallons a day equates to about 12 gallons or so, or 12 cubic feet per second. So it is a very small proportion of what is flowing in the river, right? So, and part of the reason why SPU is proposing this is that by taking the water out of the aquifer, putting it in the river, it helps boost the flow. So it'll extend that period when the in-stream flow rule is in effect, or actually reduce the period when the in-stream flow rule is in effect. But they can't pump when the in-stream flow rule is in effect, and they can't withdraw water when the in-stream flow rule is in effect. So they're only actually would be using this system for 6 to 8 months out of it every year anyway. So
Correct me if I'm wrong, but water in the aquifer, water taken from the aquifer is potable water.
generally speaking, that's true, but it has to be treated.
Yes, still has to be treated.
So chlorinated essentially. And oftentimes filtered and
It's
chlorinated.
not straight spring water coming out of your faucet, sorry.
Right, but it is where the water that comes out of our faucet comes from.
You bet. It's all
That's the
springs.
water that's the water that we drink, right?
Most of our water comes from the spring, but yes, in the summer, a good portion of it comes from the well.
So they're talking about taking our potable water, dumping it in the river.
It's the state's potable water. Yeah, that's right. But it's the same aquifer that we,
The same aquifer, we're talking about
Yeah.
taking water from from the aquifer we draw from.
Yeah.
Dumping it into the river to pull it out later downstream.
And then just charging us $73 million to get it back.
essentially correct. You get a portion.
Get it.
Yeah.
A quarter of a half.
And charging us and forcing us to spend $8.3 million to protect water that's been reclaimed from having a duck land in it.
Yeah, and pay also.
That's
They
a
have
different-
absolutely
that's a
no,
different one. That's not.
they have absolutely no respect for Snoqualmie at all.
But that,
None whatsoever.
That's-
They do
yeah.
not care.
that's.
They do not care.
That's Department of Ecology.
I-
This is Seattle Public
I
Utilities.
hate them all. I hate them all.
Okay.
They,
that's-
they don't care.
Alright.
They don't care about how long it takes for a city like Snoqualmie to come up with $80 million. $80 million.
Okay,
So that we can
but let's
protect
say-
our reclaimed water from a duck landing it, and so that we can get back the already practically potable water that was already here through a 10-mile pipe that's gonna cost us our great grandchildren's future.
Maybe we offer Seattle our duck water, but anyway. But you kind of started this conversation with, I'm gonna lead you down this path.
Yes.
But I'm gonna suggest we stay in it.
Hold on.
Oh,
Wait.
Okay, well, I
gonna
was
recommend
still
it.
confused because your whole story was no.
I looked at it pretty close. One, if we could get that water, we can't we cannot reassign the water. We can't reassign the water rights, so we can't sell the water. So, you know, it's for our own consumption, and that's it. So, you know, according to SPU's rules, we could fight to change those rules. But I mean, are we gonna fight with SPU? I mean, that's a big lawyer bill. And so, I'm gonna fast forward to it because we're out of time here. So let's talk about. the
Hold on,
president.
to what extent could we increase the amount of reclaimed water that we're putting into the river to offset this? Give them more of our reclaimed water. See, take that. You already said we have to protect it from ducks. We don't want to do that. And so take that, let us have the aquifer water.
Well, okay, so if we take that reclaimed water and we put it in the river, then we don't collect revenue for it by selling it to the golf course and use it for our own irrigation purposes. And we have to cover that with potable water anyway, so we're better off keeping using the reclaimed water.
And plus the duck water is not water rights.
Yeah.
This is a shell game on Seattle's part for water rights. Cause they're gonna take 6 million gallons out of the aquifer, which is in the system somewhere.
Right.
Dump it, pull it out later and claim it as new water, when really it's water already in existence. And we're pulling from that water, and that's of concern. So I agree, we should not support.
Long story short, I think that this project is not viable. I don't think that SPU is actually ever gonna do it, because when they look at the in-stream flow rule issue, you know, and the times of the year when they could pull it out. Also, the tribes have not weighed in on this yet, but the tribes are certain to oppose it. We have senior water rights to it, so they can't impact us. I think we would do better off by opposing it, because we could extract concessions from them if we needed to. And then also, I think that $34 million is much better spent on the aquifer storage and recovery project, right? It's also better spent on increased reservoir capacity, which, you know, that'll help us, water use efficiency programs and an intertie with North Bend to help us share water when we actually if we have problems with our water system when we need to share. You know, spending money in other ways is much better spent than getting in on this project. So we have to make a decision soon. My recommendation is that we decline. And I believe North Bend is in that same boat. I've been having long conversations with them about this too, trying to figure out how we might be able to use it as a mitigation source and changing the application and all that. But SPU is unwilling, and doesn't look like the water wouldn't be available to us anyway, unless we figured out some mitigation source that came from SPU, which they're not going to give us. So I think it's yeah. So do you guys want me to present this to?
Yes.
council?
I do. Yes.
Other than to get you riled up, I mean,
I want to see him do it again.
okay.
All right. Okay, that's it. That's all I had.
Thank you.
Brandon,
And we're gonna skip 6 director reports, if that's okay. It looks boring anyway. We're just out of time.
Just out of time.
Yeah, the direct reports, we are actually fully staffed in parks. We are hiring 2 new people in wastewater and 2 new people in water. And I think we have one of our water guys sorted out. So we're getting there.
Okay, great. Motion to adjourn?
So move.
Second.
Great, we're adjourned.